Good morning, everyone. Pastor Wes here, and this is our daily devotion, My Utmost for Satanta, episode 22 for the 22nd of April. Our passage of scripture comes from the book of 2 Corinthians, chapter 3, verses 17 and 18. They say this, Now the Lord is the Spirit, and where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is freedom. And we, who with unveiled faces all reflect the Lord's glory, are being transformed into his likeness with ever increasing glory, which comes from the Lord, who is the Spirit. What they're talking about here is a real interesting thing. If you look back at the ministry and the life of Moses, Moses at times would go away. He'd leave everybody else and he'd go be in the presence of God, and God would guide him and teach him, like on top of, was it Mount Ararat? Mount Sinai, these places where he would go to be with God. And when Moses would come back down off the mountain, his face would be glowing, would be radiant. From being in the presence of God, he was literally transformed by the presence of God. And so the scripture tells us he'd cover up his face so people would stop staring at him until that radiance faded and left him. We see maybe a more applicable devotional thing in the life of Jesus. Jesus says, and he said in our passage yesterday, John 14, anyone who has seen me has seen the Father. We've been transformed by the Father, and we have a similar mechanic for believers. Anybody who sees us, who are transformed by God, transformed by a relationship with Jesus Christ, likewise sees the Father. And this is a part of the mission of God, to transform and to draw people into a relationship with God again. We as believers, as people who are serious about our faith, we really do need to pay attention to where we shift our gaze. What we focus on, we move towards. And this can have a lot of application, but the area that is personally one that resonates with me is the pursuit of happiness. I've become increasingly skeptical, personally, of the pursuit of happiness as a believer. See, happiness is self-serving. Happiness makes me feel good. But as Christians, we're supposed to be focused on serving God and being like God and serving others in service to God. Those things are not self-serving. I have had over the years a number of friends who were of good character and good moral conduct, not many who were strong believers, but easily could have been. And they were all haunted, these people I'm thinking of, by a desire for hunger, or a desire for happiness. They wanted to be happy, and they seemed to me to have everything they needed to be happy except a relationship with Jesus, but they weren't. And they all thought, if I could just get this other job, be free of these stresses, this boss, these requirements, if I could just be in a different relationship, if I could just live in a different place. I have one guy who is a good believer, friend, who's always like, well, my life will be better if I have a different car. And I'm like, I just want to shake him. It won't be better. Every time we've talked since you were 16, we've had the same conversation, and you've gone through a dozen cars. You're still in the same boat. This pursuit of happiness is problematic because no matter where you go to find it, it's always over the next horizon. You can never get to where happiness is. But if we will stop trying to serve our desire for happiness, if we will instead focus our eyes not on our desires, but on Jesus, and who Jesus is, and who Jesus is calling us to be, and what Jesus wants us to do, then we'll get much better things than happiness. Because as we see Jesus and pursue Jesus and are transformed to be more like Jesus, we'll find peace, joy, contentment, love, hope, grace, these powerful things. And yeah, I think a lot of times we find happiness too, but we find things that are enduring instead of fleeting. And so I think for Christians, it's really important that we think about where our gaze is. I don't know many people, especially believers, who set out to not focus on God, who set out to say, I like this thing, and God doesn't want me to have it, but I'm going to raise it up. I'm going to focus on it because it's important to me, gosh darn it. We don't do that deliberately. But oftentimes we do that through neglect, through apathy, through intellectual and spiritual laziness, maybe. We just have this thing and we like it. And we don't think about, does God want me to have this? We just think about, I want me to have this. And so we lift it up and we lift it up. And the longer we focus on it, guess what? The longer we go towards it. And eventually we look around and I'm like, I'm in the weeds. I'm that seed that has gotten in the wrong soil or has gotten on the path, and I need to get back to that fertile soil. And far better for us, I think, if we will intentionally think about what we're seeking, intentionally think about where we're setting our gaze, and stay on that straight and narrow path. And so today I encourage you just think, what am I most focused on? And what am I spending the most time and energy on? And does that meet my priorities as I understand them? And if it doesn't, then think about how we can change that and trust God to help us be changed ourselves. Until we meet again, God bless you.